Hey, and welcome to another edition of Try Knoxville. Mike Roberts along for the ride again as we continue our quest to get people talked into trying out Knoxville, whether it be in tourism, whether it be moving your business here, starting a business up, or just moving here for retirement, whatever you want to do. We have it all here at Knoxville. One of the gentlemen with me, a good friend of mine, probably, if I had to think, at least equal to some of my other friends who have given Knoxville a try and decided to move here from Australia, and that is Shane Smith. Shane with Aussie Agencies, business here in town. We'll get into more of how that got started, but first of all, thank you, sir, for coming in and being on the show.
My pleasure, Mike. Good to see you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, let's start off with Shane Smith as far as where were you born and where were you raised at? Let's go back to the childhood.
Born and raised in Sydney, Western Sydney. Lived in a town called Blacktown, about 4 miles as the crow flies from St. Mary's, where another couple of our Aussie friends are from. And went to the same high school, being Evans High School, as Pete Murphy, who we all know and love.
Yep.
And I spent my growth years there and then moved to Parramatta, where the Valvoline Raceway is, where Parramatta Speedway was. You name it, it's been called it. And I lived in that area, and that's where my career was based from in the finance industry.
Tell me about the finance industry in Australia, because there's a little bit slight differences as far as between here and America, but how did you end up in that industry, first of all, down there?
Well, when I graduated from high school, there was no need for college back then. I went straight into a good government job, working for a government department very similar to your DOT here. Okay. And where we handled licensing, registrations, vehicle issues, roads, all that kind of stuff. And they would send me all over the state of New South Wales to work as a relief manager for different managers in different, what we called motor registries.
Okay.
And then after about 10 years of that, they abolished the position, and I wanted to try something different, so I went into the finance side, ended up in what they call collections or recovery, and I made a career out of that, working my way up to an executive management position on good salary, and worked all over the country, New Zealand. I can't believe I just said New Zealand.
I was going to say, yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that was in your vocabulary.
That slipped. Papua New Guinea up into the Philippines. Right. We covered that whole region. My division, about 320 employees, ran that division, and I made sure everything stayed on top and made quite a career out of it.
About how old were you when you took the executive position over?
Oh.
Trick question, yeah.
Good trick question.
Yeah. I changed the questions as we go, so.
32.
32. You could have said early 30s. I would have taken that, He's precise, I will give you that. At what point did you decide to come and visit America? Was it because of racing?
Originally, no.
Okay.
I came to the United States in 1994, and I was heading for the World Fitness Expo in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
Where I met Arnold, the legend. Wow, what a fantastic man that man. And then with a buddy of mine, we decided to go to Washington, D.C., and we scouted around over there. And on the way back towards the West Coast to a exit point, we decided to stop by here and in Knoxville to see what all the commotion was about, to do with Knoxville Raceway. And we landed in time to spend a few weeklies here, and then we stayed for Nationals, where we met so many wonderful people in this town. I would have been quite happy to stay here right then, except too much commitment back home. But met, I don't know if you want me to name anybody, but
by all means.
A certain gentleman by the name of Michael Vickroy. Everyone knows Mike Vickroy.
Yep. Marion County Auto Body.
What a fantastic guy. And we all give him a hard time, but he's still one of the best. And we met the Roushes and the DeMosses and even you. And we gave our flagman the hardest time we could in the Clarks.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, we had so much fun that we decided to plan the next one, and we came back a couple of years later and stayed for about a month again, and with people taking us into their basements and things like that. And came back again 2000, came back again 2002, where Steve Kinzer really rocked it that year in the green number 11.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met a lady here who you might say I just fell in love with.
Talking about just kind of come in here and see what the commotion's about in 1994. I mean, did you even think this persona of Knoxville, and you came at the right time too, let's be honest, it was a very active Nationals event that you walked into as well, but did you think the hometown persona was going to be like it was when you first stood up? As when I say that, I brag about our hometown. We're friendly people. We're an inviting town. I mean, did you have any expectations that's what it was going to be, or would you think, okay, we're just going to kind of check it out and then we're out of here?
We originally thought it would be another night at the races.
Mm-hmm.
Because at Valvoline, or at Parramatta PCR as we used to call it, we just had a night at the races, but then of course we would just go home.
Right.
Whereas while we were here, we were going to be doing a night at the races after a night at the races after a night at the races. But the people made us want to stick around to the point that we had not landed back home and we were already planning when our next venture was going to be. And you can't knock that when you find somewhere that really opens up to you. And year round, it's a different town when you're in this town year round, but at Nationals it was just crazy. And it made it all worthwhile, and that really did make us want to come back. You will find the majority of Australians that come here the first time plan that second time. I've never met any that came once and just never wanted to come back.
You're talking about 2002, so 18 years ago. You mentioned the fact that you've been here a few times now. You've got to know a lot of people, and you met the love of your life. From that point on, was it, how do I figure out how to move to America permanently?
Yeah. At that time, the internet had become interesting with webcams that would freeze and buffer, and we were able to talk on the phone a lot as well. But she worked nights, which matched up with the time difference,
mm-hmm.
and we were able to both be home at the same time and be able to communicate. And it went on, and knowing everybody. And then I'll have to admit, a few of my friends here did look into her and check her out, and came back with a thumbs up. That's one hell of a girl. And originally it was planned 2004, but loss of my father put that off for a while. It's not a time to up and leave your family.
Right.
And then 2005, I landed here, and the rest is history, I guess.
When you came here in 2005, what did you start doing besides, falling more in love? Work-wise, what did you do?
Well, I had to apply to the government,
right,
and go through the procedures that you had to go through. And there is a lot involved in immigration, but I eventually got my residency card relatively quick back then. And relatively quick, yeah. I got that card. First job I had here was a contract job at the hospital, working in their business office, trying to find out where all the money was. That was what I used to do.
Right.
And then I joined Wells Fargo in 2007. And I was there for about 4 years. Working through, I became a collection manager and worked, in the industry that I knew. And then my team was, you might say, pushed out because we uncovered some irregularities, but I won't get into.
Right.
And I joined the Farm Bureau. I decided to do something different again, and I joined the Farm Bureau in 2011. And one credit for the Farm Bureau was the training that you got was very good training.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned Cliff, when I got moved to the Knoxville office here, Cliff Douglas was a very smart guy, and I liked to be around him, and he helped me a lot. And then in 2015, I decided I wanted to go out on my own. Now, I got a lot of help from people in the industry that advised me which way to go. And Jay Olson here with the State Farm is also a very knowledgeable man.
Mm-hmm.
He helped me a lot. And he was the one that suggested maybe you should try it on your own, get your own carriers, and do it your way. And it's been great. I have no problems with anybody, but I've been able to build a business. And then as recent as last August, I was able to acquire Diva Insurance after 40-something years to allow Wes to retire and enjoy what was left of his life. He was getting pretty old.
Yeah. I guess you kind of have the all-around logic of why I started up Try Knoxville. You came here as a tourist back in 1994. You know, you kept on coming back as a tourist. You fell in love. Got married one of those years between 2002 and now. 05. See, I didn't want to put you on the spot too much, so.
I remember.
All right. And then, again, working class citizen, decide to live the dream even further and start your own business up. I mean, you kind of cover all the bases of why I encourage people to try out Knoxville. And again, this was 2015, and 5 years later, not only have you built a big business, but you've also acquired another business. As you said, Wes was ready to retire and enjoy some years of retirement. So you've grown by leaps and bounds by risking your own money and starting up. And to pick Knoxville, Iowa, first of all, thank you for that, because, again, we try to get all business to come to Knoxville. But you started out in the insurance business, not necessarily out of your home. You were in a brown building down by the railroad tracks. That's where we shared a spot at for a long time. And then Greg Detweiler, another gentleman who retired and moved to Knoxville from Missouri, he built a building behind Pizza Hut here, and now you rent a space off of him. So, again, two transplants in, one being Greg for building the building, you continuing your business and growing your business here in this building. What advice would you give someone as far as anybody that, again, visiting Knoxville as a tourist, all the way up to maybe looking to relocate their own business or even start up a business? I mean, there's money involved in anything when you're talking about starting your own business. But as far as investing in Knoxville, because you sponsor other things, you're very active in sports. You've coached soccer, you've refereed soccer. I mean, you've kind of put yourself in the community that you weren't born and raised in, but yet it seems like you were born and raised here.
I just don't speak the same language, that's all.
Well, that's obvious.
Coaching at the high school with Dylan Mick, who had been after me for years to give him a hand.
Right.
Loved working with that. That was just working with the community. Now, growing up, I was always a community-focused person. Here, community is everything, and the people here are phenomenal. Any business that comes here, you've got to look at it twofold, which is one way is that you look after the people and become part of the community. On the other hand, the community here, I know, especially from the period of time we're going through right now, we are supporting our local businesses, especially like our diners, our restaurants, to try and keep them alive.
Right.
I have my favorite spot, and I support them big and have done since I came here back in 94.
Yeah.
But I think that is the biggest selling point for this town, is there are good people here. This is not a poor town. This is a town of people who work and live and look out for one another. And I couldn't imagine, not wanting to be here if people were going to come here and it's not their acquired taste. Fine, thanks for trying.
Right.
But if you really have something that people want or that people need, people like, and you inject yourself into the community, there's no way to stop you.
I think you said it best right there. You have to inject yourself. You have to be a part of the community. You can't just come in and say, all right, here's my idea, here's my business, I'm going to open up and I'm not going to do anything outside of my office or outside of my industry. You have to be a part. That ranges everywhere from Aussie Agencies and yourself being the one-man man you are, or Weiler Industries. I mean, Weiler, a huge part of the community, and it invested not only financially, but is community members. All his staff goes out in the community and volunteers. They do grants, they do scholarships, and that's something you have to do to not just be a part of a business, but be a part of a community. And that's what we like about Knoxville, like you said, and you couldn't have said it any better than that. It literally is the number one reason to try Knoxville.
I agree with that. I have watched this town change. I've watched development here. I've watched people come and go. I've watched Weiler develop from 5-star engineering, because I live out that side of town. Right. Going from 5-star engineering to one building, then adding onto that, then adding onto that, and I believe there is still more to go. The town has so much potential. On the sporting front, I would like to see more come out of the school sport here. We need better facilities here. Watching the stadium on the SOS, the Save Our Stadium, I got involved with that. Did a lot of work around that, which also came to being part of the school system. And I watch things, I notice things when they happen, and I think the people here are the best. I do all my business locally. I bank locally. I do everything that is needed. If I can shop local, I will. If it's something I need from somewhere else, well, unfortunately, you have to go find it.
Right.
That is where there is options and openings for people to come to this town.
I think you said it best too, because you said about sports facilities and stuff like that. With Chris Nichols was the first guest for Try Knoxville, and it was right before the bond issue. And with the new middle school being planned and more gymnasium space as far as basketball and such like that's concerned, they're also looking at adding more green space once the old middle school comes down. And the VA project, I've heard talks, I don't know this for a fact, but I've heard talks of perhaps someday putting a sports complex out there. And I see people like you and other people jumping on board with that sports complex because you are an avid soccer person. I mean, there are days where you and I would spend, I should say, half the day just talking about soccer events that you had been at or that I had watched with my daughter back when she was playing soccer. And I agree, that's some facilities that we are missing, but we now have the steps to get there. And I think you'll see that here in the next 5, 6, 7 years maybe.
If we could get the grants that are needed, the cost is phenomenal. It's a huge cost to do that. We would need the land, but we need a multi-purpose, multi-weather facility. We're one of the few schools that still play on grass.
Right.
And the stadium, unfortunately, is a small field for soccer because it has to fit in with the football. But it's a piece of history. I would hate to tear that up, but we do need a all-purpose facility that everything could be focused in one spot.
And I could see you serve on that committee because, again, you put yourself in the community. I could see you doing that.
As long as they don't ask me for the money.
I think we'll leave it at that. I know you've got a conference call coming up here pretty soon, too. I do appreciate you coming in. Shane Smith with Aussie Agencies, one of the transplants who come in here, and I give him crap every day. Technically, you are not my secretary, we call it. What is it? My shipping and handling expertise when I'm not in the office.
I am receiving a dispatch.
There you go, receiving dispatch. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Shane Smith with Aussie Agencies coming in for Try Knoxville. He is one of the people that decided to try Knoxville. It's worked out really well for him. We invite you to do the same. Until next time, we'll see you next time on Try Knoxville.